Morning, good afternoon, good evening, those of you on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook platforms. Let us pray. Oh, most holy, Sanini Nanini, Tata and Zambi, even the spirit that moved upon the water according to Genesis chapter 1. Yes, we thank you for all that you've done. We thank you for your mercy. We thank you for your favor. We thank you for all the things that you've taken us through and brought us out of. We thank you for the different seasons in this year. We thank you for the stars. We thank you for the moon that moves in its order and the moon that moves in its orders and the stars that are your handiwork. And yet you even reveal the workings of these things even to us, those that would understand. That you have created all things and all things are created by you. But yet there are some who would deny that because of their technology, which really many times is not accurate. And we thank you for just being who you are, because we know that flesh and blood cannot be man, cannot be you. Flesh and blood cannot imitate you nor emulate you. They cannot do anything. We're just flesh, the dust of the earth. Yes, yes, yes. And we thank you for leading us even into your truth. Even to the truth that of who we are, what we used to be, and where we can go. And we thank you for all things. Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Those of you on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook platforms. I'm T. Clay, and walk with me. We're in the book of Enoch. The book of Enoch, chapter 73. And another thing I'm thankful to the Most High for those of you on YouTube who have joined me and have subscribed to this channel, and also TikTok. Yes, daily. Yeah, we give God the glory and the praise for you. And Facebook, we thank God for those that we have on Facebook. Yes, we're in the book of Enoch, chapter 73. I know for some this is easy, for some this is hard, for some it's confusing. Okay, dealing with his explanation and his description of how the order of the things that we see and we experience daily. 73 verse 1, the book of Enoch chapter 73 verse 1. And after this I saw another law dealing with the smaller luminary, which is named the moon. Yes, English. In English, it's named the moon. Now, there are hundreds of languages in the world. What is his original name? That's yet to be discovered by many. And her, he names the moon as a her, giving it a nurturing nature. Her circumference is like the circumference of the heaven. Just because they say her don't mean it's female. There's no female. I don't know where these people get this demonic doctrine of male and female energy. Males have a nurturing and female are mostly nurturing. Females have some masculine and then males are mostly masculine. This is the way the Creator had put it. You need to get a life or something. But the fact is that you have been deceived by demons, devils, who know the truth, and they hold it in unrighteousness, even in your life. Now, her circumference is like the circumference of the heaven. Her chariot, what he means is how she carries herself, how she travels, in which she strides is driven by wind and light, and is given to her in measure. Now her rising and setting change every morning. Now this is the angel Ariel explaining this. Her rising and setting change every month. In other words, you have your new moon, your full moon, your quarter moon. You got a half moon. Yes, every month. And her days are like the days of the sun. In other words, 30 days to 31 days. And when her light is uniform, it amounts to the seventh part of the light of the sun. In other words, 1/7 of the light of the sun. In other words, the moon can be very bright. You know, seven's as the whole. Now you just take one part of that seven, dim, a very dim light. And thus she rises. And her first phase in the east comes forth on the 30th morning. Her first phase on the 30th morning. Now what is he talking about? And on that day she becomes visible and constitute for you the first phase of the moon and the 30th day together with the sun in the portal where the sun rises. In other words, you're going to see both of them sometimes. And the half of her goes forth by a seventh part, and her whole circumference is empty, without light, with the exception of 1/7 part of it. What he's talking about is a new moon. Come on here. Now, when she receives 1/7 part, the half of her light amounts to 1/7 part and the half thereof, and she sets with the sun. In other words, the moon is going around with the sun. This is when they're in phase. The moon and the sun are in phase, okay? And when the sun rises, the moon rises with him and receives the half of one part of light. And that's what you see at night. And in that night, in the beginning of her morning, which many times we can say that the new moon is a new month according to the Jacoby calendar, or we ain't gonna even say the word Israel, or Kobe. Yes, the children of Jacob, should we say. And in that night, in the beginning of her morning, in the commencement of the lunar day, the moon sets with the sun and is invisible that night with the 14 parts and the half of one of them. Okay? And she rises on that day with exactly a seventh part and comes forth and recedes from the rising of the sun in her remaining days, and she becomes bright in the remaining 13 parts. Yes, she does. And I saw another course in chapter 74. A law for her and how according to that law she performs her monthly revolution. Now the moon phases and the way the moon, it really is, it's a nurturing thing. Dictates a lot of things that people experience in the night or at the rise in the full moon, the half moon, the quarter moon, and then you have the new moon. And all these, Uriel, the holy angel, who is the leader of them all, showed to me. Now, Uriel is an archangel, as they say, according to their this English religious deal. And their positions I wrote down, and their positions he showed them to me. Verse 3 in chapter 74. I wrote down their months as they were, and the appearance of their lights until the 15 days were accomplished. Now, in the single seventh part, she accomplishes all her light in the east, and in the single seventh part, accomplishes all her darkness in the west. And in certain months, she alters her settings. In certain months, she pursues her own particular course. It's talking about the moon again, talking about the moon. Now, in 2 months, the moon sets with the sun. And he says 2 months. In other words, the moon sets with the sun. In other words, this is where you're going to have, this is where the new moon happens. And in those two middle portals, the third and the fourth, she goes forth for the 7 days and turns about and returns again through the portal where the sun rises and accomplishes her light. Okay, now here we go. It's getting about to change. And she recedes from the sun, and in the 8th day enters the 6th portal from which the sun goes forth. And when the sun goes forth from the 4th portal, she goes forth 7 days until she goes, what? From the 5th and turns back again in the 7 days into the 4th portal and accomplishes all her light, a moon again. She recedes and enters into the first portal in 8 days, and she returns again in 7 days unto the 4th portal from which the sun goes forth. Thus I saw their positions, how the moons rose and the sun set in those days. And if 5 years are added together, the sun has an overplus of 30 days. This is how we get 364, 365 days. And all the days which add to it for one of those 5 years, when they are full, amount to 364 days. And then the overplus of the sun, or surplus of the sun and of the stars, amounts to 6 days in 5 years. In other words, you have that one day was going to make that 365th day. Okay? Now, every year comes to 30 days, and the moon falls behind the sun and the stars to the number of 30 days. So the beginning is the new moon, where it seems like the new moon disappears. Now, a lot of times, even in the time of Israel, when Jacob came out of Egypt, he said this month of Abib, was not that the new moon? We're not judging it by moons, and we're not going by astrology, but this was the time even God even know this is where he calculated the beginning of things as far as time is concerned. And the sun and the stars in the 13th verse, I'm in the 13th verse, bring in all the years exactly, so that they do not advance or delay their position by a single day unto eternity, but complete the years with perfect justice in 364 days. Yes. This is, see, you have a different calendar. A lot of times right now you're going by what they call a Gregorian calendar. Those of you in the United States. That Gregorian calendar is a Grecian calendar. It's a Greek calendar. It was stolen from Egypt. Egypt had the same number of days. It did the same. Egypt had time way before Greece was even thought of. Okay? But then you have to realize the knowledge of Egypt was passed down all the way from Congo. See, this is where a lot of these Egyptologists lose their minds, and a lot of things are added and taken away when you get into Egyptian, stories and all these other myths they have. They've deviated, everybody done deviated from each other. It's just a big mess of lies. But anyway, straight from devils. Now, in 3 years, there are 1,092 days. And in 5 years, 1,820 days. I'm in verse 14. And so that in the 8th year, there are 2,912 days. You do the math. You're going to find out God is accurate. For the moon alone, the days amount in 3 years to 1,062 days. And in 5 years, she falls 50 days behind. In the sum of 1,770, there is 5 to be added. 1,062 days. Now, in 5 years, there are 1,770 days. So that for one moon, the days in 8 years amount to 2,832 days. Do the math, do the math. Now, for in 8 years, she falls behind to the amount of 80 days, and all the 17 days she falls behind in 8 years are 80. In other words, the sun falls behind the moon 80 days out of what? 80 times in 8 years. Yes, that's what it's saying. Falls behind the sun 8 times. In 8 years, it falls behind the sun 80 days. Now, and the years accurately completed and in conformity with their word stations and stations of the sun, which rise from the portals through which the sun rises, and set 30 days. Thus, what it's saying, a flat earth. Yes, that's what it's really saying, a flat earth. So therefore, we're not talking, there's a curvature, we'll put it that way. It's a slight curvature, but it's a flat earth still. But regardless of that, the fact is that God is just showing us here how intricate the Most High can be, and how everything works by its order, that laws are given to it. And it's an abomination to say the law is passed. If you say the law is passed, then you don't have, there is no sin, because sin is transgression of the law. How foolish can you be in IB if we say the law is passed? If we say we never have to do the law again, when the Most High say it shall be to your generations, those of you of Jacob, those of you, and many of you are suffering this day because of the law, because you have been bamboozled by devils who have led you astray from the Most High. If you can count the years and all this, Egypt wasn't there. They lie. all these people that have so many documents and all these other things, these are just documents. It doesn't justify the laws that were told, the lies that were told in those days. The proof is in the pudding. Yes, you have sarcophagus and you have all kind of mummies and all these things. What does that amount to? Nothing. That we still have a creator. And with that, I'm going to say peace.